Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by and please consider subscribing. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. In today's tutorial, we'll be looking at a sleeveless pig collar jacket, and I have already drafted the pattern. At the top edge there, I have 4 inches as the margin, same as the center margin, which is 4 inches. The neckline is 3 inches depth and 3 inches width, and I have placed a half of the shoulder measurement, which is 8.5 inches. From the shoulder slope, I have 8.5 inches as the chest line. On the chest line, I placed a quarter of the bust circumference, which is 12.5 inches, and I added 1.5 inches for the same allowance. Half inch will be for ease and 1 inch will be for the same allowance. Now for a jacket, you're supposed to add 2 extra inches to all the measurements you have for the bust, waist and hip circumference. So now all our measurements will be from that center front that I have marked there, and just so we'll be cleared, I want to use this marker to mark out the lines that we are considering. So I am drawing from the shoulder line to the length of this jacket. The length of this jacket is 36 inches, okay? You can make it shorter as your hip line, okay? But the client insisted it has to stop few inches before the knee. So after marking out the margins, I want to fold this in because I want to use this pattern to cut the back panel. So I folded it all in and I'll be using this fabric. So first of all, I try to get the front and the back side of this fabric. And after getting the back side, I marked it with a chalk and I folded it into 2. Bringing the front pattern, I have to place this in. Now the trick about placing a pattern on a folded fabric like this is that you stick it out with about 1/8 inch. 1/8 inch, so that you will not have any kind of gapping. Okay, so if you notice that I stick it out a bit with about 1/8 inch. Okay, so then I need to mark the shoulder line. For the back panel, I want to make it 1 inch higher than the shoulder line. Now if you've been on this channel for a while, you will know that I like to do this a lot. Now this 1 inch serve as a seam allowance for both the front and the back panel. Okay, so that after sewing your shoulder, I will still be left with whatever measurement I'm using. So at the arm cuff there, I'm getting the midpoint of it and I want to stick it out with 1/2 inch. My busybodies most times is always 1/2 inch wider at the arm cuff and 1 inch higher at the shoulder line for the back panel. Now we're considering the back panel, so it's always 1 inch higher at the shoulder and 1/2 inch wider at the arm cuff. So I cuff it from the chest line and I'm using this pattern master to take it all the way to the 1 inch I added above the shoulder for the front. So I'll mark the back half length, okay, and then cut out what I have. It will be the same thing for the length and the side for now. So now I draw out a horizontal line at the back half length and I want to observe my dart. 5 inches is the 1/8 of the waist measurement. Okay, so I went inwards with 3/4 and outward there with 3/4. So I am marking the chest line and I want the dart to stop 1 inch below the chest line. So I will draw from the midpoint of the dart and take it to that length that I have marked. So now I use the same measurement I used for the up part for the one towards the hip. So I'm using about 1.5 inches for my dart because I won't be having that contouring we do have at the mid back. Okay. For the shoulder slope for the back panel, I went down with 1 inch at the shoulder measurement, and I connected it to the neck width. For the neck depth, I am going downwards from the front shoulder line. I went down with 1 inch and then connected to meet the neck width, and I cut it out and notched the midpoint. Measuring the back neck, I have 4.5 inches. Now this will come very handy when we are drafting the collar, the peak collar. So for the back panel, I just want to level it up to make it straight at the bottom there, and that's it for the back panel. Going back to the front panel, I'm using 2.5 inches for the button stand. So from the margin line there, I am marking 2.5 inches outwards from the shoulder line to the length of this jacket. So then I'll connect the dot. And that allowance there is for the button stand. Now we are making double breasted. Okay, that's why we are using up to 2.5 inches. Okay, so now for the button stand for the double breasted, you can use more than 2 inches, depends on how much of the lapping you want it to be. So now I want to get the break point, and I'm using 9 inches for the break point. Now at the break point there, I'm bringing in a ruler and I'll draw a slant line from that midpoint upward, even into the margin at the top edge of the paper, and then I connected it to the button stand that we have. So from the shoulder line, I'm going downwards with 4 inches, and I made a mark there, drawing a horizontal line. At that point on the button stand, I'm going downwards with 1.5 inches, and I connected it to the 4 inches I have on the break point line. So at where I have that first 4 inches line I drew, I went outwards with 1.5 inches, and I connected it to the 1.5 inches I had below that line. Just follow me. So then I cuff it to meet the button stand. From the 1.5 inches I have there, I went inwards with 1/2 inch and connected it back to the 1.5 inches I have below the first horizontal line, just like you can see in the video. So from the shoulder line, so I'll draft the collar, I went upwards with 4.5 inches. That 4.5 inches that we measured for the back panel neckline, that's what we are placing here. So behind that point that I marked 4.5 inches, I went backward with 1/2 inch, and I'll connect it to meet the neck width. This is to make the collar sit properly. Okay, and then I want to square out this point. Okay, at this point you use the square part of your pattern master. I square it out and then connected it to the 1/2 inches that we have behind the breakpoint line. So I'm measuring the width of the collar from that 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm measuring 3.5 inches, and at that point I'll take it to meet the point towards the peak collar, and there we have our collar. So the next thing, I am cutting this out. And we have that's our peak collar, and then I'll separate the collar, so we'll have to do a good attachment when we are sewing. So this is the pattern, and I want to manipulate the dart for the front panel. I'll divide what I have left of the shoulder. I'll divide it into two and get the midpoint of that. That midpoint, I'll connect it to meet the dart line. Okay, you see that middle line that is straight, I connect it to meet that middle line. And because I use a biro before to to mark the dart, I want to follow it out with this marker so you can see it now. This dart line, I'll take it all the way to the length of this jacket. So connecting the dot to the length of the jacket, the next thing is I'll cut it out. Cut it out and manipulate the darts out so that when I'm placing it with the fabric, I'll simply join ½ inch at that point and then join the front center to the front side. So there it is, and this is the side front. Okay, I've added ½ inch that I'll be using for the seam allowance. And for the front center, I want us to go through this part together. I've added ½ inch at that side that we cut out the darts, that we manipulated the darts. That will be for the seam allowance. And around the collar there, I added ½ inch. Okay, just at the point I cut out the collar, I'm adding ½ inch all the way around. So it means on the collar I'll be adding ½ inch as well, so that when we are cutting it out, we are simply using the ½ inch. Now pay close attention to how I mark out the ½ inch around the collar. I simply use the pattern master exactly the way I used to cut out this peak collar, and then I use ½ inch following that contour. And then I took it straight down and I'm adding ½ inch around there. So I'll take this ½ inch all the way to the length. And at the length there, I want to have a little curve at the hem. Okay, so I simply curve it out with about 2½ inches upward from the front center, and I curve it out to meet the button stand. Then using that curve, I am placing a ½ inch following this shape. Okay, that's for the seam allowance. So we'll now cut this out and we're done for the front center. So this will have a sewing video. If it adds any value to you at all, please subscribe so we'll do the sewing process together. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.